All right, welcome everybody. I have got another Meet the Expert, and this morning is the gorgeous Holly Booker, and she is a registered holistic health and nutrition counsellor, all the way from Canada, I think, isn't it, Holly?
Yes, Vancouver Island.
Awesome. And I invited Holly on today because she has such a powerful story of the healing power of plants, really. So, and I just was desperate. It's taken us ages to connect, but yeah, I just really want you to hear her amazing story. So over to you, Holly.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here, Nick. You also have an incredible, powerful story, and I love the work that you do. So I feel privileged to be here. So thank you. So do you want me to just...
Yes, just dive on in.
Right in? Okay. Okay, well, my story begins back actually when as a child. So as a child, I suffered a lot with gastrointestinal issues, like always having upset stomachs, abdominal pain, nausea, and never really received any treatment for that. And along with that, I had a lot of headaches all the time, and ear infections, throat infections, just kind of a sickly, poorly child. I didn't sleep well either. And then into the time when I started to develop more, I got my period when I was only 11, and it was only a year or two later when I developed my first ovarian cyst. And was diagnosed with poly-cystic ovarian syndrome. So that actually happened when I had a cyst rupture, became infected, and I was quite sick. Yeah, it wasn't fun coming into like getting your period for the first time and trying to figure all that out, and then getting these cysts. And at the same time being told you may never be able to get pregnant, like it may be a real issue with you. So as a small 12, 13-year-old, this was quite overwhelming. So at that time, I also began to experience a lot of menstrual symptoms. So really heavy, painful periods where I would be off school for the entire week. I would be on bed rest. I was prescribed prescription pain medication to help deal with the pain, manage the pain, because it was just so unbearable that it really affected my day-to-day life. It was very bad. So I went through this for quite a few years, and at the time, the only recommendations the doctors could give me were to prescribe birth control to try to regulate my cycle, regulate my periods, decrease the pain. But unfortunately, that did not help. It didn't.
No, and I'm going to interject here because this is something I only recently found out, not really understanding what happens when someone goes on the pill. But this is very common, isn't it? You know, a teenager will go to the doctors, and because their periods are really heavy, and the only, mostly they say, go on the pill. But what happens when you go on the pill is you actually stop the production, because you're stopping that egg from being released. You are therefore stopping progesterone happening, because progesterone happens after that egg is released in that corpus luteum. And therefore, progesterone is our happy hormone. So what happens with these young girls is they then go back to the doctors 6 months later going, I'm depressed. And so then we put them on antidepressants. This is tragic.
It is.
So yeah, anyone listening to that, please, explore the alternatives, which is, what Holly is going to be talking about.
Yes, and that's such a great point, because I was put on these prescription NSAIDs, like these non-steroidal anti-inflammatory pills, plus the birth control, and both of those also contribute to poor gut health, which then more depression issues and problems with serotonin. And I did develop depression later on in my life. So it's kind of a vicious cycle where instead of getting to the root problem, you're just throwing Band-Aids at it, throwing pills at it. It really didn't work. So yeah, I was put on these pills. It did manage my cycles in terms of having a regular period, but it didn't help to prevent the pain. It didn't help to ensure that I would get pregnant when I wanted to, none of that. So it was actually around 2012, 2013, I was doing my degree in environmental science and learned about the environmental impacts of a omnivore diet, a meat-based diet. And I happened to decide then, my husband and I, that we were going to go vegan. So, and almost immediately, my symptoms started to clear up. And I didn't know the connection at the time between the foods that we eat and our health. I was actually a paramedic but prior to that, and I still didn't know that connection between the foods you eat and how you feel. So yeah, when we went vegan, and all of a sudden my period started getting regular. And I stopped having ovarian cysts. Within one cycle of trying, we got pregnant. So that was pretty amazing, being told for years that you may not be able to get pregnant ever. And yeah, now we have a healthy 5-year-old. And it was actually on a cruise in Norway. We went on a vegan cruise in Norway, and Dr. Greger was there. And,
yeah. One of my heroes.
He's one of my heroes too. And he did, so he kind of introduced us to the idea of plant-based nutrition and the plant-based vegan diet. And it was that moment when everything clicked in my head, and I learned, like, wow, we have so much power to control our own health and how we feel through the foods that we eat. So that kind of full circle brought me onto this journey of exploring my health and my wellness and a plant-based diet. And it's only gotten better since then. So now my periods are totally regular, like clockwork, and they're almost painless. Like I use a Diva cup and I barely know I have a period anymore. Like you wouldn't even know. And I just can't believe the difference in the quality of my life for that, because of how much it impacted me. Also not worrying about those ovarian cysts and some of the other symptoms that come with that, like insulin resistance and weight struggles and headaches and all those other things. So it's just been incredible, and I feel very lucky that we found that.
Oh, I totally agree. It breaks my heart, because there are so many people out there who are struggling with just everyday symptoms, you know, whether it's feeling sluggish, whether it's low-level headaches, whether it's just, you know, bloated and constipation, and then the more serious, you know, health issues of, you know, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, you know, diabetes and heart disease. It goes on and on and on. And just changing what you eat can get rid of all of those. But unless you do an experiment, you're never going to know. And I'm such a proponent. I love doing, you know, experiments, because I think, you know, just do it for 1 month. Just 1 month, you know, change, you know, some things and see how that affects you. Because then once you've experienced the difference and you start waking up without that headache, or, you know, you, like most of my clients, having a fantastic regular daily bowel movement. Oh, okay. I didn't realize this was because of what I was eating.
Yeah, 100% agree. It's incredible that, and one thing that you notice too is that when you stop eating those foods, like you may not realize that those foods are causing the issue until you stop, and then maybe you have some again, and then you realize, wow, like that was having such an impact on my life. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's hard for us to realize that connection. You know, we really think of food as being, you know, quite benign and innocuous, but in actual fact, it really is having an impact on your health, and you really can make those changes and experience the difference. Now, you know, we're not saying it's easy, you know, by any means, because I think socially is probably one of the hardest things, you know, because you've got people all around you eating foods that, you know, you don't want to be eating, and so you're up against this, you know, not rejection's probably a too harsh a word, but, you know, saying no to foods that you don't necessarily want to put in your body. You don't have the options very often, especially when you go out. I don't know what it's like in Canada, but I live in a remote town in Australia, and I don't go out to eat.
Yeah, it depends on where you are here. Some of the major cities like Toronto, Vancouver, it's like a vegan, like everything you can possibly get. But plant-based is definitely more difficult to get those healthy plant-based foods. But yeah, it's about a change in lifestyle. And I did find it a little bit difficult at the beginning, I won't lie, but part of that was because too, I had no idea how to cook. I didn't like, I lived on takeout and frozen meals, and I was never taught how to cook, and food wasn't really like a big thing in our house. It was kind of like fend for yourself and, and eat whatever.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to eat healthy, learn how to cook for myself. But I will say it's been amazing because I was really picky before, and now I love almost every plant food there is. And it's so cool to have that and to have those different flavors and experiences that I never would have had before.
Look, it's like any new skill, isn't it? You know, I mean, I talk a lot about, you know, I came online, you know, a couple of years ago, and I had no experience online. And so, you know, I used to cry. I'd get off a coaching call and cry and think, am I ever going to be able to learn this? You know, because there was just so much to learn. And now I understand that, you know, it's a process. And when I'm now confronted with a new platform that I have to learn, I just know that I'm going to go through this, you know, through the journey. I have to learn it. And in a couple of months, I'll just think it's easy like everything else. So, and that's very similar to, you know, learning a new way of eating. You know, many people think that going plant-based is just, oh, just eating vegetables, how boring. But there is a whole world out there, and it is about just learning those tricks of the trade, isn't it? You know, cooking things in advance, or, you know, cooking the rice the day before so you're halfway there for the next meal, and doing all those sorts of things just to make your life easy, which is what, even if you're not eating plant-based now, you still want to try and do things to make life easy, like a menu plan, you know?
I agree. And it definitely was like a learning process for my husband and I. And there was definitely recipes we tried that we did not like, and
Yeah.
the learning curve, but it's really cool that how far we've come since then as well.
And one of the other things is that we can, when we're first starting the journey and transitioning to more plant-based, we can get very caught up in a lot of the processed vegan or plant-based foods. And, you know, while these might be helpful in the beginning and to transition, I call them transition or treat foods, because some of those vegan cheeses are really just full of coconut oil and also soy products, you know, that aren't genetically, that are, you know, not organic. So, you know, they're not really healthy foods. So yeah, I just caution people, you know, in the beginning they might be helpful, but really we want to be looking at making all of our own food, you know, so that we know what's going into it and there's not all of that added fat or, you know, preservatives and things like that.
Yes, I totally agree too. And I can tell with myself with having IBS, like I always eat vegan still, but if I start to eat some of those more processed foods, I do get symptoms again. So yeah, you can really tell if the more, like, the healthiest foods don't have a nutrition label. So if you can stick to those ones, you definitely feel a lot better.
Yeah, I agree. So how do you approach, you know, someone who is a total, you know, is eating the standard American diet or standard Australian diet, and they want to give plant-based a go? Where do you start with them?
So I think the important thing is to start with the why. What is their real reason for why they want to do this, to help them feel really committed to it and excited about it, and envisioning what this will help bring them. As you said, like, especially around social situations, it can be difficult. And instead of feeling like you can't have something, I feel like it's so much more empowering to be able to say, no, I don't want that, or I choose not to have that. People will ask us all the time, like, oh, can you have this? And we're like, yeah, I can have it, but I choose not to. I choose not to for my health or whatever reason. And then the next thing I recommend is to just kind of do an assessment of what your favorite foods are now and how can we replace those with plant-based alternatives. So for example, like you love chili on a baked potato with sour cream, like a meat-based chili. Let's create a bean-based chili with a cashew-based sour cream on a baked potato with butter. Like that's super delicious, healthy version of that. Or say you love spaghetti bolognese, let's replace it with lentil bolognese on a whole grain spaghetti. So, there's definitely like simple steps that you can do to kind of have those favorite meals still incorporated into your life.
Totally agree. I always think that you need to find a favorite, a healthy alternative to your favorite, comfort foods. And I know for me, I just love these black bean brownies that I make because they, the sweetener is dates, so you're getting the fiber. They've got a can of black beans in them. I mean, win-win. And there's some, a little bit of almond paste, a little bit of almond flour and some cocoa, and they're just amazing. And anyone listening, they're on my website under blogs. You'll see the brownies. But they, it's great because I never feel deprived when I have those.
Exactly. I think that's important because, many people think that when you're plant-based, you just eat salads every meal. Yeah. And if you do that, you will be hungry and you'll be grumpy and you'll feel deprived. So
yeah, and that is another misconception, isn't it? That you're going to feel hungry and not satisfied on a plant-based diet. And nothing really could be further from the truth.
I agree.
Yeah. No, it's so good. Now, please tell us, Holly, how can people find you?
So you can find me on my website at hollybooker.com or also on my Facebook page, which is Holly Booker Holistic Health, Yoga, and Nutrition.
Awesome. So fantastic. I will put all of the details in the show notes if you want to track Holly down. And thank you so much for jumping on and talking to us today, because it's just such a powerful message. I think, for you, changing over to plant-based and your symptoms disappearing, not even realising the connection is just phenomenal. And it just gives so many people who are struggling with similar issues so much hope that there is so much power in what you put on the end of your fork and taking back control of your health.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And I hope that is the takeaway message, that you have the power within you to completely change your life and your health and not to feel like a victim to your diagnosis, because you can change.
Yeah, absolutely. And get some help. That's what both you and I do. We walk people through that journey. We support them, give them those, because give them the ideas, and the practical solutions to overcoming just the everyday little challenges of when you are starting, a new journey. Which eating plant-based is. So, yeah. Thank you so much, Holly. I'm so excited that we finally got to chat.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome, Dale.